afternoon, folks. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. My name is Espinosa-Goswami. Thank you very much for joining me live for day 2 of Schedule Your Siesta. You may notice I'm not wearing a siesta hat today, and I don't know if I'm going to get to my siesta until quite a bit later today. But the good news is we're going to talk all about today how to incorporate a siesta practice. Actually, we're not going to talk about how to incorporate it. That's day 3 tomorrow. What we're going to be talking about instead is what your siesta, your personal version of a siesta could look like. And I'm super excited today because I have some gifts for you. Really cool gifts, completely free. My gift to you to help you organize your time and thoughts around this topic. Because if you watched yesterday's video, we talked all about why a siesta is important. Because we tend to fall into that afternoon slump in the middle of the day, which is just a biological thing. It's a physiological response in our bodies, so it's a human nature kind of thing. We tend to fall into slumps in the afternoon, which cause us to desire a siesta. But there are a number of scientific studies that tell us why we should consider incorporating a siesta. There are actual benefits, both physical, mental, and emotional benefits to establishing a siesta practice in our own lives. But I know that that can be challenging for a number of people. So today we're going to go a little bit beyond the traditional models of what a siesta actually is, because when I was researching for this particular event, all of the versions of siesta that I was researching would say nap, sleep, all of those kinds of things. And I know I don't often get time to sleep in the afternoon. My husband usually does, but I prefer not to because of how my day is and how my energy flows throughout the day. But that doesn't mean that I don't have an established siesta practice that I can rely upon every day to recharge and rejuvenate. So today we're going to talk about very specific siesta practices, not all the same, so you can kind of choose your own adventure when it comes to your personal version of your best siesta. Now, if you caught the video yesterday, if you haven't caught the video, I will pop it in the comments below so you can access it right away. I do post a lot of things on this page, so perhaps you didn't get a chance to see it. And I want you to get a chance to see it. I ended yesterday's video with a question to you. What does your dream siesta look like? And when I ask that question, I don't mean like, will you sleep every afternoon? Instead, I was asking if you had 2 additional hours in your day. Sometimes it happens, maybe on weekends only, but sometimes it happens. If you had 2 extra hours in the middle of your day, what is your dream for how to use those 2 additional hours? And I'd really love to hear from you what you would spend that time on. A lot of us want to catch up on things, so let's walk away from the idea that it's a to-do list and an opportunity for you to be more productive, because that's not the purpose of this 3-day event in Schedule Your Siesta. We're talking about how to rest, rejuvenate, recharge. So if you had 2 open hours in your day, you can comment down below this video, because regardless of what happened with video 1, you are here with me today, and I'd love to hear from you. 2 extra hours in your day in the middle of the afternoon, what would you love to do with that time? If you didn't have to worry about anyone else's needs but your own needs, I'd love to hear from you. Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us. I'm so glad you could join us today. I'm really excited today for some reason. I just finished a blog post, which is amazing, and goes through the nitty-gritty things that we're going to be talking about today and tomorrow. It also includes the free gift that I mentioned. I'll give you a little preview of the gift later on, and I'll include it in the resources for this page. But if you're like, what is this Schedule Your Siesta thing? I just kind of saw this girl pop up. I'm not sure what's going on here. Schedule Your Siesta is an idea that scheduling the breaks in your day, or scheduling the pauses, or the moments when you can actually enjoy and chill out, will encourage you and motivate you for those times when you have to get to those to-do list items that you don't want to get to. Because we have a lot of things on our list that we have to do that we don't necessarily enjoy doing. So we're reframing what your day looks like by saying, let's schedule and anticipate something you love to do, so that regardless of what happens before and after that time, you know you have something that's going to make your day. And I want you to have the most enjoyable day you possibly can. So that's why we're talking about siestas. Siestas are fun things. So Mary said that she would nap with her extra 2 hours in the afternoon. She would nap, meditate, and do some knitting. Those are all very wonderful types of activities to incorporate to rest and recharge. So thank you, Mary, for weighing in on that. Personally, I would do a combination of those three things except for knitting. I'm not a knitter. I'm probably not so good at it. I'm good with my hands, but not necessarily with knitting. So I think what I would choose to do would be during the weekdays, I don't do a lot of napping, which you may find really funny because I'm talking about siestas, right? And traditionally, siestas involve some sort of sleep or napping. I wouldn't do that during my weekday just because personally don't feel that that's the best way for me to recharge because I have usually busy evenings or things that are expected of me in the evenings. So I recharge in different ways during the weekday. On weekends, however, I certainly do nap. I nap anywhere between 1 and 2 hours, at least Saturday, if not Sunday, at least one of those 2 days. So that's definitely on my list for weekends, if not weekdays. I don't meditate much in the afternoon, but I do like to go outside and if I'm at home, I'll sit outside on the bench and just enjoy my backyard. I have a beautiful backyard. I love to take outdoor time. If I am in between appointments, I might stop at a fun spot. One of my favorite spots to stop at is Normandale Lake in Bloomington. That's the site of my half marathon, and it's also been a very important site for me. I created my blog years ago at the Caribou across from that lake. So it has some very important emotional connections for me. That's one of my favorite things to do. And if I have like 2 hours to burn, I am going to pull out paint by number kinds of books, my adult coloring books, something that I can really get lost in and experience a lot of color because that's fun for me. So I would love to hear from anyone else who's joining us. And by the way, if you're watching the replay of any of these videos, do weigh in with your comments. I do see your comments. I will respond to you as they come through. Just be aware that I will pull down all of these videos on Friday evening because the longer it takes you to get to these videos, the less likely you're actually going to watch them. And if you're not going to implement the things you're learning in these videos, I totally understand. Your life is busy, but maybe this is not the right time for you to really, take use of these things and learn from them. So this is for the people who are ready to jump right in and are excited and ready to take action. And if that's not you, that's totally okay. Watch as many or as few of the videos as you want, but they will be taken down on Friday evening, this Friday, 9:20. All right, who's ready? Who's ready to learn about different ways to incorporate siesta practices in your life? Tomorrow, we're going to talk about where and when to incorporate them because that is the nitty gritty. How on earth do I make this work? What can I do about this? We're not going to get to that quite yet today. Today, we're dreaming and we're having fun and we're creating something that feels really lighthearted and leisurely. That's what we're focusing on today. Before we jump into that, though, I forgot to introduce myself. Mary knows me. We've connected many times. Our children love to play together. But if you've never seen me before, or this is the first time you're seeing this video on this page, welcome to Weightless. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Jen, and I am a mom of 2 beautiful daughters. I am a wife. I am a health coach. I am a goal getter. I am a motivational speaker. I am someone who likes to encourage people to take action in their own lives so they can be their best self and reach their powerful potential. And a lot of times that looks like I help you figure out your daily routines. I help you figure out meal planning for your picky family. I help you figure out how to incorporate more of the things you maybe don't love quite yet, but you want to learn how to love, and less of the things you don't, and less of the things that feel like a drag on your life. I want you to incorporate healthy habits for life. And the way to do that is to make them fun and make them unconscious. Those are the 2 best ways to do that. So I help people figure that out in their day-to-day life. I think that's a pretty good introduction. So thank you for joining me. I would love to hear from you. Where are you joining me from today? Like what city, what state? Sometimes I go international with these videos. I had a woman from Scotland one time. I'd love to hear where you are signing in from. If you have access to typing right now, don't do it if you're driving. We're hands-free in Minnesota. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a sniffle going on. It is fall. It is allergy season. And it hits hard for some of us. All right, so I promised you Today we would focus on siesta practices. First of all, let's talk about the more traditional models of siesta. Siesta traditionally came from a Spanish tradition where people would, I just said traditionally from a Spanish tradition. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, it came from Spain where people tended to take naps after going home to eat a proper, healthy lunch during the middle of the day, which tended to be a very heavy meal and something that people needed to recuperate from. So it's a beautiful practice. It's a beautiful practice of avoiding the afternoon heat, of getting some rest, of taking time to be social and connect with family members, which is all very beautiful and not very applicable to the majority of modern times, especially because I live in a cold northern state. Such things have never existed. My husband's from India, so they have a different version of a siesta. It's not a 2-hour break in the middle of the day, but their scheduling system looks a little bit different. People in India are not as much into breakfast like we are out here, so they tend to have their heavier meal during lunchtime. And sometimes the school children don't eat their proper lunch until they get home, which is sometimes 2 and 3 in the afternoon. So their scheduling is kind of a little bit similar to Spanish scheduling as well. So they take on a siesta version of their lifestyle as well. So you'll see this a lot in hot climates, but we're not necessarily in a hot climate. Mary and I are both in Minnesota here. If anyone else is joining us from a hot climate, perhaps it is the practice where you are. But typically, when you think of siesta, you think of sleeping in the middle of your day. And why should we sleep in the middle of our day? Well, let's look at the physiological reason, because there is a very good reason for that. You may have heard that all of our bodies operate on a 24-hour cycle, which is called the circadian rhythm. Basically, this rhythm has times where we're very energetic, and then we drop off and we're less energetic. And that tends to happen in the afternoon, called the afternoon slump, siesta time, whatever you want to call it. So physiologically, there's a reason why we should rest. Now, I shared with you that we're going to talk about different practices. Yes, you can certainly close your eyes, lay in bed, and sleep as part of your siesta. However, I know a lot of people who struggle with sleeping for very short, defined periods of time, which if you work in an office, you only have so much time to fall asleep. And if it takes you 10 minutes to fall asleep, you're not going to be able to wake up within your 30-minute break when it ends. So that is a very challenging and sometimes stressful thing to try to figure out. Maybe sleeping is not in the cards for you. If you're a mom with young kids at home and they're napping, you certainly could sleep. I know that I didn't when my kids were little, despite all the wonderful advice from my mom friends. Sleep so you sleep, and I never did. Not then. Now I'm more likely to do that. But you don't have to identify yourself as an afternoon sleeper to take advantage of the siesta. Now, here's what's important about sleeping in the afternoon. You're changing your brain waves when you sleep. Depending on how long you're sleeping for, you will be in a very restorative phase of brain waves, or you might be in a lighter phase, so it's not as restorative. Perhaps it might even feel like you're groggy when you wake up because you went really deep into certain brain waves. Our brains have cycles just like our bodies have cycles, and when you sleep, your brain goes through a variety of different brain waves. And some of those waves are designed to help you recharge, to flush out your brain, to replenish chemicals that are going on in your brain. There's lots of different reasons for the different stages of sleep and how they help you rejuvenate and rest. And depending on where in the stage you wake up, you may feel extremely rested or you may feel very groggy. So that's why some people may be hesitant to establish a sleeping practice as part of the siesta, which is totally okay. If you do have the time and you do have the right location to actually lay down and take some sleep in the afternoon, here's a really brief tip that might be helpful for you. Before you lay down to sleep or before you go in your car. I know a woman from one of my audiences in the past who she works in an office setting, but she goes out to her car and, usually the sun is shining in the afternoon. She goes out to her car, a little bit of music or something in the car. She puts her head back, she puts her sunglasses on, and she rests in her car. I don't know if she's actually falling asleep or snoring or any of those things, but that is her version of a siesta. She's resting herself. So no matter what your resting looks like, whether it's in a car, in a bed, underneath your desk, whatever, the best way to utilize the short period of time you have to sleep, actually sleep, is to drink a cup of coffee or have a dose of caffeine if you don't do coffee 20 minutes before you're going to rest. I'm going to repeat that. It's called a nappuccino. So you literally take a cappuccino, a coffee, a tea, if it has some caffeine in it. Some varieties of tea don't have a lot of caffeine, but drink that up to 20 minutes before you plan on shutting your eyes and getting some actual sleep, because that caffeine will kick in about the time that you need to get up. So within 20 to 25 minutes after you sleep, it'll kick you back up and you will be more rejuvenated and refreshed. So the nappuccino is my tip for those of you who are like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sleep. Good for you. I encourage you to try it, and try the nappuccino. You're probably drinking coffee anyway, but if you're drinking coffee at 2 o'clock because you're like falling asleep at your desk, save yourself the trouble and do yourself a favor and just do your cappuccino or your coffee before you rest during your lunch break, and then you'll be more energized 2 hours later because you already got your sleep. So you already rejuvenated yourself. Those are my suggestions. And this is not my idea. I got this from a book I read. I can't quote the source at this point because I don't remember exactly where. I read a lot of books. But it is definitely something that works. Studies have been done on this for people who are lifelong nap haters when it comes to the middle of the day. That is my top tip if you intend to fully nap as part of your siesta. So that's one siesta practice, right? The nappuccino. Lay down, sleep, lean back. If you're in your chair, sleep. Sleep is not the only way you can rest. Now, sleep changes your brain waves. There are other things you can do in the afternoon that change your brain waves, such as meditation, siesta practice number 2. Now, Mary shared that she currently does do some meditation if she has that time in the afternoon to spare. And this is a really great way to change your brain waves. So it's creating rest in your mind, even if you're not closing your eyes and becoming unconscious. Meditation has many benefits, and there are different types of meditation that you can do. Not all types of meditation will change your brain waves, especially if you're brand new to it. If you're not used to the practice of it or the ritual of it, it may take some more time for you to shut off this monkey brain and actually change your brain waves and your brain state. If you're more practiced at this, then you may easily fall into a different brainwave pattern because you're used to it and your body knows what to expect. So you can create anticipation in your body as well as in your life by just knowing and creating a consistent practice of doing it. What are some types of meditation that are really good for changing your brain waves? There's a particular type of music or beats called binaural beats. That's B-I-N-A-U-R-A-L, binaural beats. Now, this is a particular type of rhythm that can actually change your brain waves. Now, I don't have a lot of articles behind this, but I have practiced and experienced this myself. There is a particular type of gratitude meditation that I would frequently do, but it was a 20-minute practice, and I didn't always have time for the 20-minute practice, but I found that just by listening to the binaural beats in the background, I could establish that brainwave pattern that I was looking for that helped me rest. And there are other types of meditation that can get you there. Typically, beginning meditation, if you're using it to fall asleep at night, it's helping your body slow down. It's helping your mind slow down. So typically, relaxation meditations will do that for you just as well. Another thing you can do to change your brain state, there are a lot of meditations around shifting from pain to relaxation, or that focus on body scans. You may be surprised, but most of us can go through our day without paying attention to any of our physical cues because we're stuck up in here. We're not feeling it in our bodies because we're stuck in our head. That's one of the benefits of meditation in terms of resting, because you're suddenly putting your attention on your body and using your head to do that. Your body can't go where your mind doesn't go. So if you do body scans, that can be a good way to change your brain waves. What is another way you can rest that is not sleeping? By the way, my husband always asks me, do you want to rest? And I'm like, if you mean sleep, I don't want to sleep right now. Because for him, rest is the same thing as sleep. I don't treat those things as the same thing. They're not. You can sleep, means close your eyes and get unconscious. You can rest through meditation. What are some other restful practices? Well, there's quite a few. One that I've already mentioned that's really important for me, and a third practice that is restful, is breathing techniques. Why is this restful? Because most of us are not present in the moment. And most of us, because we unconsciously breathe, we don't put our attention on breathing properly. If you're in choir, if you are a speaker, if you are a vocal coach, you are aware of the importance of breathing techniques. If you are a musician, if you have to consciously focus your breath for any particular reason, you know the power of breathing intentionally. And it slows down not just your body, but also your brain. If you're someone who struggles with mental illness, because, I think 1 in 5 Americans struggles from some variety of mental illness. So chances are good someone watching this might be experiencing some of this. The best way to rest and change your brain patterns, that kind of like nervous anxiety that floats around in our brains, is to focus on your breathing. That is a restful practice. And I'll share one other thing too. The importance of breathing and focusing on your breath can take as little as 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, maybe up to 5 minutes. I guarantee you're not going to spend 2 hours focusing on your breathing. So if you're a person who's very concerned about how much time you can dedicate to your siesta, breathing is the most important practice you can incorporate for yourself today. Just breathing. And there are different ways you can focus on your breath. There's I can't remember what it's called. It's like at the 5-4 pattern. So you inhale. Yeah, you just watch me breathe. You inhale. Let me explain to you what I just did. You inhale very deeply for 5 seconds. So you're counting to 5 seconds in your head. You hold it at the top. You're holding your breath for 1 second. And you breathe out, explode that breath out for 4 seconds. What does this do? It replenishes the oxygen in your body. It clears out the old oxygen, because you're breathing out for such a long period of time. You're clearing those things out of your system. Holding the breath is just an important pause. We don't tend to pause a lot during the course of our day. And there are studies that show that focusing on your breath in moments of high stress, I'm guessing you might have some stress, maybe especially that shows up for you in the afternoon. I know I do. Stress shows up for me in the afternoon, all times of day, but it feels like it's an avalanche effect by afternoon. So if you feel stressed, breath work is the best thing you can do, no matter where you are, who's around you. You don't need like headphones. You don't need an app. You can do that with just yourself. If you're in a car and you're feeling some road rage and you're like, it's a crappy day, you can focus on your breath and your day will get better, because you're putting yourself into a restful state, a calm and peaceful state. And if it's been a while since you've experienced that, that will definitely feel like a siesta for you. And it's a very short-lived siesta, but it's a very powerful one. That's the third practice for how you can incorporate rest during your day. So when we talk about rest, we're talking about changing the pattern of your brain waves. What is something else that can do that for you? Anything sensory, it can change your brain waves. Here's what I mean. When you listen to music, especially classical music, you're using your senses, so in this case, hearing, to listen to something that is calming for you. and that can create a sense of rest. It can change the frequency of your brainwave patterns. That is a form of rest. Now, some people have a habit, I know I used to in college, of listening to music in the background constantly. Depending on what you're listening to, that may or may not be restful for you. Obviously, if you're exercising to a fast beat, that is not restful. So there are certain types of music that lend themselves to rest than others. Usually that's instrumental music only. And I'm not talking about that really annoying music you hear in like stores and elevators. Not that kind of instrumental music, but like classical music from Mozart and Beethoven and Vivaldi and all the greats from way back in the day. But there are certainly more contemporary is the word I was looking for. More contemporary artists who can also bring that feeling to you. Worship music sometimes fits into that category. As long as it's heavy on the instrumental, and it can include some like Gregorian chants from like monasteries. Those types of things are repetitive, have a certain beat that you can come to expect, and help put you into a different place mentally. There are a lot of studies that show the benefits of having children listen to classical music. It helps improve their test scores. It helps improve their ability to focus. It helps improve their mood just from listening to music in the background. I know personally I have used different types of music, and this is going back to occupational therapy and mental illness related types of assistance. But there was an app called Therapeutic listening, and it had certain music. It wasn't like your typical instrumental classical music, but it was a certain type of music that had certain beats that can actually put you into a different brain state. And it wasn't like good background music, in my opinion, but it worked. I would just play that when things were getting very, very tense and to the point of almost a meltdown in my family. I have a family member who struggles. And I would play this music in the background called Therapeutic Listening is the app name, if you're interested in that. And even though it didn't sound like something I would like to listen to, it seemed to do something. And sometimes, I'd put headphones on with my family member who was struggling, and that would help too because it drowns out everything else. That's a form of rest. It's stopping where your brain wants to be and putting it somewhere else where you want it to be. It's being very intentional about the kind of experience you're creating. It's creating rest for you. Because if your heart is racing and you're in fight or flight mode, you're not going to feel great. So you want to create rest through changing your brain patterns. Hi, Danielle. So glad to hear from you. Oh, and I mentioned that classical music, if you're not a fan of Beethoven, Vivaldi, Mozart, all those other greats from Vienna and whatever, there's a piano player that I listen to called Helen Jane Long. She's got great albums. I really like her music. It's very simple. It's not complicated. There's not too many notes. In the case of Mozart, it has a lot of notes. It's not heavy and dark like Beethoven can be. It's not busy like Bach can be. Can you tell I know my music? Helen Jane Long is more of a contemporary piano music. So I highly encourage listening to her if you are like, yes, this is my rest break. This is my siesta. I'm going to listen to some calming music. And since Mary and Danielle are both on, I want to hear from you. What are your your favorite music to listen to when you need to calm down, when you need to rest, when you just want to take a moment and enjoy yourself? I would love to hear from you because I'm sure you have great recommendations as well. So that's the fourth way to create sort of a rest period for you as part of your siesta, even if you don't want to actually like that. So, understanding that not everyone can do that. What else can you do? Another thing repetitive movements or repetitive kinds of practices are very helpful. You may have heard of things like coloring, puzzles. That does put you in a thinking state, which you don't necessarily want to be in when it comes to rest. Like puzzle, you might have to think about it, but things like coloring, in the Zentangle kinds of things, the things that have repeated patterns, mosaic patterns that you're applying certain colors to, those can put you into a different place mentally. And because it doesn't involve a lot of brain power, that can be restful for you. I know I love to color. I used to spend at least a few hours every weekend coloring with my children because it was restful for all of us. We all like color and we all like to do those repetitive things. I also had a sticker book that there were pre-cut stickers and I would place them in specific places. And that was restful for me because I wasn't really thinking about anything. I usually had some cool music playing in the background, restful music. So between those two activities, it was rest for me. It was a way for me to just calm, chill, and not think about anything. That's the point of rest, right? Is not thinking about all the things we think about. So Danielle is sharing that she goes on Spotify to listen to instrumental piano. Yeah, instrumental piano is a good one. Is there a particular, and jazz. Jazz is also a good one. So jazz is interesting because it's not as repetitive. It's more, they change up the rhythms quite frequently in jazz, but that can be very calming and restful. Is there a particular type of piano music that, or an artist that you really like, Danielle, when you look at those things? And she says she listens to her Calm app, which is usually guided meditation. Guided meditation is my personal favorite. It's what I've been doing for at least 2 years now, and there are certain guided meditations that I rely upon. Usually they're tied to nature in some way, because I mentioned that one of my top ways to rest is to go out in nature. The Japanese have a concept around that. They call it forest bathing. I can't remember the actual Japanese word for it. Shorin-yoko, I think, is what the Japanese word for that is. But there are studies that show the Japanese kind of explored this territory first because Japan is a very high stress kind of country. People work more hours even than they do here in the States, and their people were suffering. So this concept was introduced, and I apologize, I don't know who the founder of it was, but to take retreats into the forest and actually bathe in the forest. Now, bathing in the forest means basically you explore your environment. You're not necessarily foraging for anything, but you're touching the trees. You're noticing the colors. You're feeling the shade from the treetops. You're maybe going barefoot within the grass or the moss underneath you. So it's creating that sensory experience. Now, I mentioned that music is a sensory experience, whether that's therapeutic listening or binaural beats in the meditation or listening to instrumental music. That's a sensory experience that's auditory. You can have a sensory feeling experience. Some people feel restful and calm when they have weighted blankets on them or they wrap themselves up in a burrito. I'm not suggesting you need to do this, but I suspect that's why a lot of people love fall and winter. And I say love because we have a hate-love relationship here in the Midwest where we get a lot of snow, but there's nothing quite like cozying up underneath a very soft and warm blanket and sitting by a fire, because that's a sensory experience we don't get to have in the summertime. You feel the fabric of the blanket. You feel the weight of the blanket. If you have a pet, you feel the weight of your pet. And those things are very comforting, relaxing, and restful, even if you're not actually sleeping. So creating different types of sensory experiences can be very restful for you. Now, I've talked a lot about rest because siesta is all about rest, but maybe you're a person who's like, I'm not going to pause in the middle of my day and rest. I got too many things and too much to worry about and all that good stuff. Oh, I see your comment, Danielle. If you can find a good list, let us know and share it, because I love finding new things, and I'm sure you do as well, and people who are watching this. What is the other way you can experience a siesta? Experience your own personal siesta without resting, because maybe the activities we've talked about so far are not a go for you. That's okay. How about recharging? There are a couple of different ways you can recharge, and these will be brief because they're pretty common sense. Ways you can recharge. Movement. It could be exercise, but it doesn't have to be exercise. I'm a health coach. Of course, I'm going to talk about exercise, but don't underestimate the power of stretching. Don't underestimate the power of walking, something that all of us can do. Don't underestimate the power of any type of movement, even just changing your environment. That is a way to recharge. When I say recharge, I don't mean you shut down. This type of siesta is a recharging version of a siesta, because if you're feeling low and less energy and just down, You need to recharge. Maybe sleeping is not your answer. Maybe you're too keyed up to sleep. Then what you need instead is to recharge. And movement is how to get you there. We sit on our butts all day long. I'm sitting on my butt right now. Yes, I got exercise this morning. That's great. But it does not make up for sitting down the rest of the day. And you might have this experience as well. If you spend a lot of time in your car, if you spend a lot of time in front of a computer, if you spend a lot of time just sitting for various reasons, then you are not getting enough movement breaks. Movement recharges you. Your energy needs somewhere to go. When you're sitting still and down, even if you fidget, your energy has nowhere to go. And if you have less energy, then you need to create energy through movement. You can create energy without drinking a can of Red Bull. You just have to move and change your environment. Those are super critical to recharging. Another way you can recharge is eating something. Yes. When you feel that afternoon slump, you may be like, oh, I got to hit the vending machine for a candy bar, or, oh, I got to get my Red Bull, or, oh, another time for a cup of coffee. Yes, eating or drinking something can help you recharge. I would caution you, though, to be especially, what's the word? Especially picky when it comes to what you choose to eat in the afternoon. You crave sugar if you're low energy because your body knows that sugar is a ready source of energy and it's going to get you recharged. However, it's not the long-lasting energy that you're probably looking for, because I'm guessing that your day doesn't end at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. My day goes until 9 or 10 o'clock, sometimes later, just depending on what's going on. So I'm guessing that you probably have the same circumstance where your day goes on and on and on, and that candy bar is only going to last you for an hour. So be very picky when it comes to your choices if you're going to recharge through eating. Something with fiber in it, something that has some staying power like fat, a healthy source of fat. Protein is going to last you longer than a carb any day of the week. Any meal of the day. Those things are going to last. And if you can combine a healthy mix and a good balance of protein, fat, and carbs, which are the 3 macronutrients, then that's the best way for you to recharge. Now, you may have heard of some infographics and notes out there. If you're feeling hormonal, then a piece of chocolate is good. But if you're craving chocolate, then this other food could be more beneficial for you because that's what your body's asking for. I will find that picture and post it underneath this video, probably after 2:30, after I get my child from school. But I will post that because that's intriguing and something to consider. In general, though, I think if you're craving a piece of chocolate, you're not going to accept a piece of salmon instead of that. So, it's good to have choices. It's good to know what to go to and to have a resource, but also honor what your body is requiring and know that the mix of protein, fat, and carbs is the best way to recharge through eating, afternoon or any time of day. So those are 2 ways to recharge: movement, or eating something good for you. What is another way to recharge? Solving a puzzle. Often when we're in a state of feeling overwhelmed or feeling like we're trying to catch up, we simply need to take a moment away from it. We need to take a break. And that break doesn't necessarily have to be we shut down and we sleep and we just clear our minds, because it's very difficult to learn how to clear our minds. But if we turn our attention to something else that takes some thought, but a different type of thinking, then we may find solutions to problems that are in the back of our mind, because we're shifting our focus and our attention away from what we thought we were struggling with. And that could be a great activity for you to recharge. Here's what I mean. Suppose you're thinking in your head, oh my gosh, I didn't exercise today. I feel horrible. There's nothing I can do because I'm injured. I just can't even deal with this right now. It's horrible. I'm a bad person. I never do things right. You're going into a critical place in your mind. If you turn your attention to something that requires you to think logically through a solution that has nothing to do with your self-talk, nothing at all. Like maybe you have a friend who's like, do you know where I can find X, Y, and Z? I'm shopping for this and I can't find where it is. And you're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. It's this place I was at last week. So sometimes redirecting to helping someone else can be the solution for you. Working out a puzzle like Sudoku or one of those things where it's a logical reasoning kind of thing, that might be helpful for you. It's turning your attention and focus into something else that can be figured out. So I'm not saying you take on something that's very difficult, like don't take on advanced theory and logic and things like that, but things that are easily solved or easy for you. Everyone is different. I'm not trying to say you can't do easy tasks, but shifting your focus away from that can be a good way to recharge, because the more you beat yourself up about a same topic that's not getting you anywhere, the more depressed you'll feel, the less likely you'll take action. But if you take action in another realm of your life that is figure outable, then that's solving something. It makes you feel good. You get a good hit to your confidence. All of a sudden things feel good and you're like, yes, I got this. I can do this. And it also helps you recognize that you are a beautiful, multifaceted person and you can do hard things, even if you can't figure out that one thing. So redirecting your attention, parents do this all the time with their kids. If their kid is like in the middle of a meltdown, they'll be like, oh, how about this? Or your animal is upset. You know, it's a redirection. It's shifting the focus to something else that's more productive or more interesting or more fun. You can certainly do the same thing for yourself to recharge. Which brings me to an interesting point. When it comes to rest or recharge, it does not involve this thing. Most of us will turn to this thing, or if not that thing, a TV, an iPad, or something. That does not create a change in our brain pattern or an opportunity for us to recharge. Instead, we're creating more tension. We're creating physical tension in our necks, physical tension in our shoulders, depending on how far over we're hunched over to look at that device. We're creating emotional conflict, because depending on what we're looking at on our phones, you could be comparing yourself to someone else. A lot of people feel bad when they look at social media like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. There's a lot of messages out there that may not be realistic, but may make you feel a certain way about yourself. That's not restful or recharging for you. That's not helping you get to where you want to be. That's not helping you enjoy your siesta time. But that's our default, right? Oh, I got to respond to this. I got to do this. That's your to-do list. Your siesta has nothing to do with your to-do list. No to-do list during your siesta time. I know the temptation is there. I used to clean during my siesta time. Not anymore. I'm not going there anymore. So that's pretty much what I have for you today in terms of different practices you can utilize siesta. If you have certain things that you do when it comes to time to recharge, relax, unwind, please let us know in the comments, as long as it doesn't involve this. I mean, it can involve your phone if you're using a meditation app. I get that. But other practices that you use that are very restful and help you feel good and like you can enjoy yourself. Tomorrow, for day 3, we're talking all about how to make a siesta actually happen in your day. Because if your days are anything like mine, they're crazy busy from one thing to the other, and sometimes you don't even have any regularity or consistency in your schedule. So you could say, I'm not even going to try because it's too hard to schedule the siesta that you keep talking about. We're going to figure all that out tomorrow, right here on this page at 1 o'clock Central Time. Let me know if you're able to make it. Oh, and I forgot to share with you. I mentioned there's gifts. My gift for you today is a calendar. Yay! It's a 1-page calendar. So it helps you prep for tomorrow. It also helps you identify 20 different siesta practices you can utilize. So it has a morning, afternoon, and evening calendar for Monday through Friday. We're just going to focus on 5 days of the week so far. We're not overwhelming anyone. And at the bottom of this 1-page document is 20 different ways you can experience your own personal siesta. I've mentioned 6 or so ways for you to experience siesta, and some of our friends here like Danielle and Mary have recommended things that they use in their siesta. Now it's time for you to put your brain at work and identify up to 20 different ways to incorporate your own personal siesta. I want you to do the homework, folks. I want you to get clear on what that looks like for you, because once you're clear, you're going to start taking action on the things that make sense for you. So I will pop pop that link in the resources below this video. I have to get going and pick up my child from school right now, but I will pop that link. It's a Google account. It's a Google link, so it's a Google document. You should be able to make a copy of it and download it and use it. But I do want you to get to that before tomorrow's video, because it'll be clear then on how you can really establish a schedule that allows you to actually fit your siesta in. I want you to get that time in. It's important. It's a date with yourself, and it's part of your self-care. So I really think it's important for you to get this done for yourself. You deserve it. In the meanwhile, I will pop those links I mentioned. Let me know if I forget anything, or tag me if you have any questions. Feel free to share your siesta practices, because we need to come up with 20, folks. So we need more ideas. Let's crowdsource this and get it done. In the meanwhile, I hope you enjoy this fabulous, beautiful afternoon here in Minnesota, or wherever you happen to be. And join me tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time. And we'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your siesta today. Bye-bye.